Welcome to this week's edition of Extra Point, a little different look at the world of sports here in Iowa. I'm Al Lorenzen, joined by Mark Hansen, and this week, former Drake Provost and Drake Group founder, Jon Ericson. And guys, this time of year, it's a mixed bag in terms of what's going on in the sports world. And Mark, I'll throw this at you initially. This last week, what popped out at you? Anything? What pops out at you is different than what pops out at me. I mean, and usually what pops out at me happens in the shower. So I'd like to hear you talk a little bit about the world of sports last week in the state of Iowa.
I don't think I can go on after that introduction, but
I'm leaving.
No, what popped out at me, those words will never be the same again. Obviously, the Blackhawks and the way the whole sporting world seemed to evolve around them, and the amazing comeback that they have. And I think this shows, you know, I had teenagers in my basement, and I was upstairs, and I could hear them screaming. I haven't heard, you know, anything like that in NHL around here for a long time. And it just kind of tells you that hockey can be such an exciting sport when it's good. And and that's why I hope the local team, people give it a chance, because in person especially, it's a great sport. It's an
exciting sport. Let me ask you this, now, since we're on Stanley Cup, give me your observation on what you think that did for the sport of hockey, because the sport of hockey had been on life support, very obviously, with some of the labor issues and other things. What an incredible shot in the arm for the NHL, in my mind.
It was, and it was a shot in the arm the way the Blackhawks came, and right in January when they started, they kicked off the season with this magnificent streak. I think that got people interested. Yep. And no, I think they did as much. They didn't save the sport. It's not to that point, but they really gave it a big lift.
Yep. Much the same in my mind. If you remember back to the Canseco-Maguire home run days. Now, in hindsight, obviously we've got Sosa-Maguire, not Canseco. But you look back, Canseco-Maguire was when they're together at the A's. But anyway, you look back at what that did for baseball at a time where baseball was coming off some rather turbulent times, and to me, it's almost similar. You couldn't have scripted the home run chase in that era, and what happened at the Stanley Cup in this era for the NHL.
No, it was what happened at the end there, where they were down, you know, by
2 goals in 17 seconds.
Yeah, and 2 goals in 7, and it was just drama like that just doesn't happen very often, and it was just fascinating to watch.
Yep. And that's from 2 guys who can accomplish a lot in 17 seconds. That still was pretty amazing. You know, for me, this last week with USA Track and Field and everything that happened in Des Moines relating to track and field at Drake Stadium, the reality is great thing for our community. And we've talked at length about, you know, hey, what does that mean? And is it a harbinger for the Olympic trial? The reality is so much of that is political, and who's chairing what committee at the USATF during that particular bid cycle, how much money Nike wants to throw at USATF behind the scenes to make sure that their agenda is accomplished. So I'm not sure we can speculate about all that. I can say that the event was incredibly well run, that the event represented Des Moines, represented Central Iowa in an incredible way. You know, you can't make up for the fact that the east stands are virtually empty, and you have to run the sprints because of wind in front of empty stands. You can't make up for that. The attendance was respectable by all accounts.
Right.
Wasn't a home run, but a solid double, maybe a triple.
I think so. I think it's just unfortunate that everything, the gold standard is Eugene, Oregon. I mean, and that's what you're compared to.
Right.
And you're never going to win that one if you're just starting out like Drake, although Drake has the relays background. And if anybody can make it happen, I think it's the people over there, because they've done it before and they know how to do it. But it's just this, you know, everyone Eugene, and it's just very hard to battle that.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to talk a lot more about Drake and the relevance as it relates to Drake's place in the hierarchy of academics and sports and that whole conversation with former Drake Provost and founder of the Drake Group, Jon Ericson. Stay tuned for Extra Points right after this.
That's magic. This is not. No magic can help you get in shape, and it won't happen overnight. You need a plan, commitment, and more often than not, you will need help. That's what the Y does best. They have the finest facilities and equipment and a professional staff trained to help you succeed. If you and your family are serious about living an active, healthier lifestyle, why wait? Join the Y today and let tomorrow be the start of a healthier you.
Welcome back to Extra Points. We're glad that you're joining us no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing. Well, I guess we'd like to limit maybe the focus in terms of what you're doing to watching TV, maybe having something to eat or drink. I'm Al Lorenzen, host of Extra Points, along with Mark Hansen, and as promised, the much anticipated arrival of former Drake Provost, founder of the Drake Group, Jon Ericson. John, it's good to have you on with us.
Yes, I'm happy to be here.
John,
that was hard.
let's jump right in. As it relates to every day you turn on the TV, you've got that conflict that seems to never end with sports, academics. You obviously were at the forefront of this conversation going back to when the Drake Group was founded in 1999. Let's talk about a little bit about what precipitated that and the creation of that group.
Well, this is not complicated. I was a college professor and I was on committees, and one thing led to another where I was in the presence of academic records as we reviewed what programs to maybe terminate and what programs not. And all of a sudden I saw things that I thought weren't right in terms of academic records, particularly with athletes. And that's how that all started. And so the question is, what do you do when you see something that you think is so completely wrong?
Right. You go to a country that doesn't have extradition, right? Isn't that what? Oh, that's a whole different story. Yeah.
So that's how it started, and one thing led to another, and then we were also in a very difficult period at Drake financially, and this review of programs included extracurricular programs, which leads to football. And all the evidence suggested that Drake had no business being in scholarship football. And so it was a package of academic programs that had to be cut and other areas that had to be cut. And that's how I got involved in all this, and then one thing just leads to another.
And so you helped devalue football.
I helped what?
He puts that out there in such a harsh...
No, I was just talking about how football, you thought that it was better that they went down a notch. And
I actually thought we were terminating football, Drake.
See.
I thought we were going to be Creighton or someone else. And I was quite surprised when I found out. That's fine. It's just that I hadn't thought maybe we'll have a different kind of football. But the original recommendation was to terminate football, Drake.
That was pretty controversial, wasn't it?
Yeah, my fan club shrunk considerably.
But tell me what you think about the way it turned out with the program on the level. It's Division III or Division I non-scholarship.
I really don't know. I've left. I haven't looked at the income, whether they can afford to continue it. One of the jokes around campus is we have to keep football so that there'll be guys around to date the women. The football program.
There's some legitimate value in
yeah,
that. I mean, if you're going to continue to recruit women to the university, you may want to have somebody for them to go on
I'm
with.
sure that's right in the forefront of the admissions.
Amen.
Appeals.
Well, John, when you look at now, you were right in the thick of what's an appropriate level of academic achievement to participate, and I'm going to take some license here, but correct me if I'm wrong. And it not limited to men's basketball or football, but what's an appropriate level of academic performance to participate in any extracurricular activity? Is that accurate?
Yeah, and one of the proposals I made was to have a 2-point by semester in order to participate in any extracurricular activity. And of course, all hell broke loose that this was way up there, too high. And then when you stop and think of it, 2.0 is the bottom of the barrel to graduate. Can't get any lower than that. 2.0 means you're not going to get into law school. 2.0 means you're not going to get into graduate school. But all of a sudden...
I think that's what Mike Hume was, now that I think about it.
I
went to a public school.
And we were thinking of you, that we wanted to make sure you made it right over the edge. Or else we'd have made it 2.5, and then there you'd have been.
Well, and let's talk about that for a minute, because everybody, you listen to sports talk. Well, you don't, but as Mark and I listen to sports talk and other things, the reality is you get this wink, wink, nod, nod, and it's not really about these kids getting an education. It's about the business of sport. And I happen to, you and I may not agree on a lot of stuff, I don't know, but I happen to agree completely with you. If a student is going to enroll at a university, it needs to be with the expectation is that they're progressing toward getting a degree. And so in that context, the 2.0 seems reasonable.
Yeah, all I care about, I was a professor and the provost, which happens to be the chief academic officer of the university. All I care about in this whole thing is I saw academic corruption, and what do you do when you see it? Well, you're supposed to try to fix it. I don't care about paying the athletes, which I'm against if I had to get that.
It can't happen.
I don't care about 4-year or 1-year scholarships. I don't care about any of that because you can make all those changes. The O'Bannon thing can win and they can get tons of money. If you want it to be a college athletic team, that means academics. And until we deal with that, nothing else is going to matter. This one argument, well, let's cut them loose and call them University of Iowa, but they're not. The fans won't take that. I suffer from the idea that my team at my university, that they're students. And if all of a sudden it's cut loose, it will be the Lincoln, Nebraska arena team.
Right.
And I won't care anymore.
Right.
So I'm starting
And
with
that's
the
European
assumption.
model. In Europe, it's clubs.
Yeah, but we're not going to have that. I'm starting with the assumption we want our teams to be academically tied to the university. Ergo, that
what a
means
radical concept.
Yeah, that we're going to have and the only thing that matters, all that other stuff is, I just think it all goes down to who can solve the problem of the academic corruption. There's only one group, and it's the faculty. And don't ask, do they care?
They don't care.
That's right.
While the faculty slept, I think is one of your essays.
And so the question is, if the only group that can deal with it, solve the problem, doesn't care, that group, then the question is, how do you get them to care? And that's how I got tied into disclosure.
And that involves,
expose it.
And tell us what that involves.
It would involve that you make public in the sports guides, media guides, wherever, in the Des Moines Register, the courses and the professors taken by the athletes. And you can either include the grade and not the name, or you can include or just not the grade.
So in other words, it's still confidential. It's not player X. It's maybe a number or something.
Well, no, I would, if my preference is to include the courses, the name of the athlete, your name.
Yep.
And under your fancy picture.
Underwater basket weaving, whatever it was.
Yeah, and your 28 game per average scoring and your 14 average rebound every game right there would be your course selection.
And the reason
with the name of the professor.
And the reason for that is not necessarily to keep the athlete straight, but it's to make sure that the professor, the faculty, is being held accounted for.
Yeah, I mean, Witoski blew it. I mean, just terribly. Remember years and years ago, who were the two football players at Iowa? One that fumbled.
Ronnie Harmon.
Yeah, Ronnie Harmon.
And then the other guy. Well, the Des Moines Register published their records. And all hell broke loose. I have the yellow pages today. I should have brought them. But that's terrible what's going on. But what Witoski didn't do is include the names of the professors. That's more important because the records were embarrassment. I should have brought them. I got all put out on And then we would have known.
You're trying to hold them
The whole
accountable.
thing is about the professor. Who does the magic?
There was still a pretty good story, I might add, in defense of Tom Witoski.
Guys, I don't want to stop this, but I do need to take a break. We're going to come back with more Jon Ericson and talk about the foundation, how we created the Drake Group and what went into that and what came out of it in 1999. Stay tuned for more Extra Points.
Overwhelmed? Frustrated? Not sure what to do with your garage? Let the professional design team at Minnesota Cabinets be your garage organization solution. Floors, cabinetry, slapboard walls, and other accessories.